Happy Halloween, everybody.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of House 2, the second story. The last review in my Halloween sequel series. If you are ever looking for sequels that are entirely disconnected to the previous film, the House series is a great example of that, as each of the 4 films has little to do with the other. Even House 4, which sees the return of the main character from the first film, does not follow on from the plot of that film. The only thing that connects all 3 is that they feature a house, but not the same house. House 2 sees R.A. Gross's Jesse McLaughlin move into his family home with girlfriend Kate, played by La Park Lincoln, and friend Charlie and his girlfriend Lana, played by Jonathan Stark and Amy Yasbeck.
Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to
His family mansion has been abandoned for years after Jesse's parents were killed there when he was still a baby, but he feels the time is right to return, so sets up home there, discovering a picture of his great-great-grandfather, also called Jesse, in front of an Aztec temple, holding a crystal skull. In an effort to find the skull, they dig up the coffin of old Jesse, who turns out not to be as dead as they thought, although still mostly dead.
What year is it? I don't know. Now don't you mess with me, boy.
Old Jesse explains the house is built from Aztec stone, which is pretty evident from the architecture, to be honest, and acts as a conduit to travel through time and space, the skull acting as a key, but also as a magnet for evil. After various escapades, including being joined by electrician and part-time adventurer Bill, played by John Ratzenberger.
Hold on a second, will you? I've been through this kind of thing before. Just don't touch anything till I get there. Looks like you're gonna need the help of a professional.
Old Jesse's former partner, Slim, also now undead, arrives to claim the skull as his own, and the fight for ownership forms the climax of the movie. It's worth noting that the creative team behind this film remains the same as the previous film, so it was entirely their decision to take it in this new direction. Also of note is that the first film features George Wendt in a supporting role, so it seems like maybe the writers were Cheers fans. I think the first thing to note about this film is that it is not a horror. It plays with horror elements, and 2 of the main characters are zombies, but this is very much an action-adventure comedy. It's also perhaps not as well put together as some of the other movies I've covered, but it still has a lot going for it. I think the reason for that is that it came out soon after the first film and feels a little bit rushed, because it was. There are some things that work incredibly well. Old Jesse is a brilliantly realised character, helped in part by Royal Dano's performance, which manages to balance tragedy and comedy, and it comes through his prosthetic makeup.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm supposed to be young again.
Dano was best known for playing Abraham Lincoln several times, including providing the voice for Lincoln in Disney's Hall of Presidents. He was a veteran of westerns and is perfect as Old West prospector Jesse. The reveal of his face after Jesse has told him they're related could have been very silly, but the emotion on his face, really just in his eyes, really sells a sense of pathos. The prologue, where we see Jesse's parents murdered, is incredibly evocative and belies the tone of the rest of the film. even if their murderer, an undead Slim, is voiced by Frank Welker, making him sound like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Give me the skull. Two can play at that game.
The production design is also great. The sets look much grander in scale than the budget allows, as is the blending of special effects in the pre-digital era, and the practical effect characters are a lot of fun. Most of the dialogue is very natural in a very unnatural setting, such as when Charlie and Lena arrive and we find out Jesse is an artist, in a completely organic way, as Charlie gives him a birthday present of a framed magazine Jesse is featured in. However, I have a slight problem with how Jesse himself is introduced as he first looks around his family home. He picks up the family album and describes to us what he's looking at, rather than to his girlfriend Kate, who is immediately making a phone call. While I understand this shows us her character as someone with little interest in the house or Jesse's family, it gives us some unprompted exposition, as Jesse just seems to talk aloud. It would have been so easy for him to be telling her about his ancestry, only for her to get bored and then make a phone call rather than her start on the phone. It's established that Jesse likes to talk to himself later on in a much better way that helps explain the first scene, but it still stands out in a story with otherwise great exposition scenes, even with the quick pace the film moves at. There are some great shot choices too, where we see characters' actions juxtaposed to mirror each other, such as when old Jesse is punched by a caveman and Jesse is punched by Kate. Where I think it falls down, though, is the Kate storyline, which goes nowhere and is resolved unsatisfactorily, as she invites her boss, John, played by Bill Maher, to a party at the house, and he quickly sets about breaking Kate and Jesse and Laura and Charlie up before leaving with both the women. For the rest of the movie, they don't appear again. Had Kate and Jesse's relationship been more of a focus of the film, or been written out completely, I think either would have been better for the film, as the storyline we do get doesn't really add anything to the plot or the character development. It feels like maybe they could have used the time better to introduce another adventure for Jesse and Charlie to go on. There's also a running gag where one of the garden decorations keeps getting knocked down that doesn't really land and isn't sold particularly well, but generally the humour hits where it's supposed to and fits the high concept tone of the movie. Some of my favourite things about the film, though, are how original some of the ideas are. In some ways it's sort of a proto-Bill and Ted, as the two fairly stupid, although not quite Bill and Ted lead characters visit various different historical periods before returning to their own time. But the addition of the zombie great-great-grandpa and his zombie nemesis helping to drive the story forward is a brilliantly original conceit, as is the weird pets they acquire in the prehistoric time period. It's weird for the sake of being weird, but also completely in keeping with the plot, which is what makes it work for me. Just the right level of silliness. I think the film is really strongest in its final third, as young Jesse and old Jesse have to deal with Slim, and how old Jesse's desire to live forever has essentially cursed his family line. His inability to face his own mortality comes too late for Jesse's parents, but can be resolved through Jesse, and even help him in the end, giving him a new start and new adventures. I would certainly recommend this film to anyone looking for a bit of fun. 80s adventure movie with tons of imagination and creativity. You certainly don't need to see the first film. But I would consider watching all 4 movies, as they all offer something creative, although I would argue that this and the first film are the most consistently entertaining. Thank you. Goodbye.